The one that they say is the most famous is one from War Games, when Matthew Broderick comes into the war room and pushes that major off the computer. The guy he pushed away was a guy who was he was our technical advisor. He was actually an Air Force major. He said, wait a minute, I'd never let this kid into my computer unless I had a direct order from the general. John Badham turned to me and said, can you think of a colorful way to order the kid into the computer? I said, yeah, I believe I can. So he said, okay, action. God damn it, I'd piss on the spark plug if I thought it'd do any good. Let that boy in there, Major. Somebody asked me how I came up with it. I said, well, I had a cousin. One day we were out on the tractor with Granddad, and he's got off to do something. Left it running in neutral. I told Ronnie, I said, I got a dime in my pocket here. I'll give it to you if you'll pee on that thing right there. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew it'd be exciting. So he peed on that spark plug, knocked him off about 2 rows over. He cried. I thought maybe it gelded him and he wouldn't ever have any children, but he had 2 or 3 children.
Well, it's the land of the free and home of the brave. Stairs in the house of the community. Well, leave them alone and what they're gonna say. With the clean back, black and Marcus here to say,
Today, we get a glimpse into the man behind iconic characters in movies and television shows such as Killers of the Flower Moon, Urban Cowboy, Northern Exposure, Tulsa King, Lonesome Dove, War Games, No Country for Old Men, and Yellowstone, just to name a few. We discuss AI in the entertainment industry and where it's going to go from here. We talk about a cutthroat industry that's so difficult to get in and make a living for anyone for even a year or a decade, let alone the 6 decades that he's had success in the movie and television industry. Yet he stays humble. I've been chasing this guy down for over a year trying to get this interview, and I hope you're half as excited as I am to hear his wisdom. And he has plenty to share. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming my new friend to the show, Mr. Barry Corbin. So do you want to mention this surgery? I mean, I think that's kind of a significant point to start.
I don't really care. I mean, I tried to keep it quiet until we got it, till we realized that I wasn't
You're going to be okay.
Die,
Yeah. Obviously.
I mean, I kind of like to surprise people with my death, but
but it is not going to be here.
It's not going to be soon.
Well, and you've conquered cancer before, and then you had this crazy scare, and have been in and out of the hospital for a month, which was of a significant concern. And only 6 days ago, you got out of surgery and you're here?
Yeah.
So has it changed? It's been you've been in the hospital for that long. Does it change your perspective on your outlook?
I'm done mourning my dead gallbladder. my gallbladder died in me and wouldn't quit. It was trying to take me with it.
You going to auction that off?
No, my brother said I ought to gold plate it like does all his crap. He gold plates stuff and sells it on the TV.
Yeah.
I said, well, I ain't Trump and he ain't me.
That's true. I was just curious if you pitched it or any sentimental value to something you've carried all these years, and if it changes the way you look at life. I mean,
no, it makes me feel what I've decided now. I didn't realize we just die piecemeal. So what I'm going to do now, in about 6 months, I'm going to check into the hospital again, get them to give me all those MRIs and everything that they do. If they find anything that's either sick or dying or dead, then take that out and throw it away.
Right.
Because all I need really is my brain, my heart, and my lungs.
Right.
Everything else I can do without.
Well, I know when we talked before we got rolling, you were talking about kind of the old school version of you. And has that attitude changed now that you've recognized, hey, it's not so manly necessarily to ignore that stuff, because if you want to live, you're going to have to go.
Well, it's probably a good idea to kind of pay attention to something. If you're not
Yes.
feeling good, you might want to go to the doctor after a week or so, not keep on doing whatever it is you're doing, because it might be more important to
Live.
save your life.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's an important lesson in it, but it's usually, I've been at the verge of death a couple of times too, and it's always just changed different things and different things.
Yeah,
One of them was
my death never occurred to me.
before this.
Well, even with this, I didn't think it didn't occur to me that I might die of it. I thought, well, I'll get over this.
Yeah. Well, that's probably helpful, actually, keeping that attitude anyway. I wouldn't encourage you to change that.
Yeah. No, I had talking to a heart surgeon one time. He said, well, the first indication most people have when they have a heart attack is death. He said, it's most of the time there's no warning. You just,
Yeah, that's it.
And I had a friend of mine visiting me one time about a year and a half ago. He just dropped over dead he went to get a beer and dropped over dead going back to his chair.
Oh, man. Sorry to hear that.
It was kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody was going to die, it'd be him, because he was overweight and he was always half drunk, So
You kind of expect it to come a little sooner for some of those
Well,
folks.
he's probably going to go before I do.
Understood. Well, I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate.
Well, I'm glad it was him and not me.
Yes, that's usually what we think without saying it so much. But
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty comfortable saying it.
Well, I'm glad you're here too, because I don't know if he would have been as interesting to interview, but I mean, he could have come.
Well, he would have been an interesting interview, but nobody'd give a shit.
So if I kind of go in an order, I don't want to necessarily spend too much time in one particular area, but it is interesting to know your background, your father, and I've heard you talk about your father as somebody that you did like to have conversation, bounce ideas from, and take direction from. And he was a state senator, and with all the crazy extremism and madness around here, did his experience doing that while you were growing up give you any different insight into how politics work, or what are your thoughts on all this mess?
Not really. It was he was elected county judge when I was 1 year old. It was right after Pearl Harbor. I'd been born in 40 and Pearl Harbor was 41.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was in politics from the time I remember. So I thought everybody's dad right hand was crippled because he had polio when he was a kid, and his right hand was like that. I thought when you get grown men have hands like that. And I wondered when mine is going to do that. Yeah. And it never did, so.
Yeah, and then once you came to maturity, and certainly after all this time, you see and we don't do politics necessarily, and so I'm not asking specifically political views, other than, has it given you insight into kind of how things work as you see all this madness unfold?
Yeah, it, because I was, my grandfather was, he was a staunch Roosevelt Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And back in those days, the Democrats were the Republicans and the Republicans were the Democrats. That's a different way. Apparently, that's what happened, because now Texas is pretty much Republican. And when I was a kid, it's all, they wasn't, only people Republicans was bankers. You didn't and nobody liked bankers.
Yeah.
So it was all of a sudden. Then Connolly changed over, and then all of a sudden everybody's a Republican. So I didn't, I'm what I always was, kind of in the middle somewhere, middle of the road where you could dodge in semis and
Yeah.
all kinds of dangerous stuff. They said, well, if you don't choose a side, then you're going to be left out. I said, well, I'm left out then.
That's an interesting way to approach it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
certainly where I am too, but I think not a lot of us get heard because we don't have anything
Well,
so sensational to say.
we do because we give somebody. I never have been a one to publicize what my political beliefs are because I might be wrong.
Yeah.
But why would I try to convince you that you're wrong when I might be wrong?
Sure. You reserve the
wouldn't
right to
do
change
that.
your mind.
But no, somebody asked me who I voted for in the last presidential election. And I knew where she was going with this because I knew who she voted for. She didn't know who I voted for.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm kind of like Jesus along those lines. I believe in praying in my closet rather than in the public square. Says, what does that mean? Says, I'll keep my vote in the voting booth.
Mm-hmm.
It's not none of your business how I vote.
That's wise. And I think that's kind of old school too. I mean, my parents
you
come
don't,
up.
you don't say, well, I voted for so-and-so because he might turn out to be the biggest crook in the world, which is kind of what happens,
Too often. Well, so you grew up in rural Texas.
Yeah.
And were all this stuff about being classically trained and all this stuff, the fact that you grew up in a rural town and in and out of Lubbock during those formative years is also kind of contradictory or counterintuitive when you think about where you went in terms of a classically trained actor. How did you square that in your mind? How'd that transition?
Well, it was a slow process. I started out going to the B Westerns, in Lamesa, Texas. They had a debate when they named the town, and I think they were incorporated in 1904. And they had a big debate whether to, because La Mesa means the table in Spanish.
Right.
And they wondered whether to have capital L, little a, and then capital M, ESA, or put it one word, LAMESA. And
Americanize it.
and they decided they didn't want to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
So rather than La Mesa, they call it Lamesa. And if somebody's from there because they don't say La Mesa, they say Lamesa.
But still spelled like La Mesa.
Yeah, but except there's no capitalization.
Right.
Now, if you go to La Mesa, Nevada, which is right across the border from Utah, it's La Mesa, Nevada.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Whatever. But Lamesa, Texas is Lamesa, Texas, because all our teeth are stained. We have a lot of fluoride in the water, and we speak Texan. We don't speak English. We don't speak Spanish. We speak Texan or Tex-Mex or something like that.
Sure. Which again is counterintuitive to then you go somehow from weaning in that realm, your parents, and then what inspired you to pick up acting outside? You said you went to the Westerns in the little
and
theater.
I looked at I kind of liked Wild Bill Elliott because he had a voice like this. I'm a peaceable man unless I'm riled. And I found out later that he was a tennis player, and Ben Johnson taught him to ride a horse. So he said he was the best pupil he ever had who had never ridden a horse before. Because within a year he was competing in cutting horse contests.
Well, sometimes that's better because you're not unlearning habits, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's.
Well, I had to unlearn how to ride a horse before I knew how to ride a cutting horse. You know, because that you're
significant difference in the way you do that.
Yeah. There's a difference in the way you sit the horse. You know, because normally you don't have a horse trying to jump out from under you. You know, if unless you've got a pretty bad horse,
you got to be ready. Yeah.
But it's you know, I learned to ride before. I mean, I rode my granddad's horses and stuff before I could walk. Really, you know, I knew how to, you know, get from one place to another on a horse.
Yeah.
But I never really learned, except just what I picked up watching people and things, you know. And then when I got to California and started messing with the Westerns and doing, you know, got interested in cutting horses and all that, and I really studied how to ride, what I need to do to help the horse, where we're partners rather than I'm telling some animal what to do.
Right. That weighs 10 times as much as you. So now you can actually ride. You're kind of visually stimulated via the Westerns, the old badass type.
I knew Cowboys, you know, because there were ranches around there when I was a kid. Now it's all cotton fields, but they had several big ranches when I was a kid around there. And the Cowboys would come into town on Saturday to watch the movies. They weren't much older than we were, you know. We were kids and they were 18, 19, 20 years old. So they were barely adults.
Yeah.
And so we all sat there and watched the movies. But, you know, I knew they had to get up real early in the morning and had to work real hard all day. Now, getting up real early in the morning wasn't to my taste, and working has never been to my taste at all. Anything that involves shovels or tools, I don't want to have anything to do with.
Yeah, that kind of work is different from other kinds of work. That's legit work.
Yeah. My work is thinking about how to get out of work. So that's the secret right there. You got to start out lazy,
and then figure it out backward.
Because we get up early, and but there's very little work involved in my work. You know,
I beg to differ, but maybe we get to that because I actually would love to dive in further in that because obviously there's a lot of work. There's a lot of hustle. And I mean, even when we take from where we left off, when you're taking off to New York from Texas, was that following college? Was that after college you left?
No, I went into the Marine Corps and went through boot camp and advanced infantry training and I just before we went into Vietnam, so everything was kind of confused in the in the Marine Corps at that time because we were sending advisors to Vietnam, and we were training Vietnamese officers in California for jungle warfare in Southern California, which makes absolutely no sense. They could have sent them to South Carolina and would have made a little more sense, but it was it was a really kind of confused time, and they didn't know where to put me. They finally just I got a discharge early for some reason that I never understood.
You still don't know?
Yeah.
How early? You did a couple of years, right?
I was a couple of years in there, and then I was out. And they sent me a request when we were really embroiled in Vietnam to re-enlist, and I sent them a letter saying that I was that I've begun a career. By this time, I was at the American Shakespeare Festival in Stratford, Connecticut. And I said, I'm really kind of busy right now.
And that was a choice they let you have then, because they drafted some folks.
They wanted people who'd already had the training,
right? Of course.
And so they'd get people who were recently discharged and want to know if they wanted to get a sign-in bonus or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was,
not enticing enough.
Not enticing at all.
That resembles more like the work type stuff too, especially going into war. I can't imagine where you'd be now if you had to go experience that. That was a rough one.
No, I didn't. I don't know. It was just a very confused time in our history.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time in our history we got involved in. We were always involved in foreign affairs, but this was the first time we got really embroiled in something we couldn't get out of.
Somebody else's war, and
yeah, and it was.
And you saw that then?
Yeah, because we were training Vietnamese officers at Camp Pendleton, and I got to know some of them. They were kids. They were like majors and colonels, but they were my age, like 20, 21, 22. And they spoke French. They didn't speak Vietnamese.
Of course. I mean, what else would they speak?
And, 10% of the population was ruling the country. They were all educated in France.
Wow.
So they were really French.
Yeah.
And 90% of the population was Buddhist, and 10% was Catholic,
So avoiding that was kind of key, and I think maybe a stroke of luck too, because you weren't too old to be drafted by that time, right?
No.
But you were able to say, "Look, I've established myself." How did you manage to actually?
Well, I'd already gone through 2 years and been.
You've done your time, technically.
Been discharged.
Right.
So.
When you got out of there, what spawned this? How in the world did you go from the rural Texas? You loved the cowboy westerns. Then you go to college first.
Well, I got when I was in high school. I had a teacher who was the theater teacher, speech and theater teacher in high school, and he was a big classics fan, and so I started reading Shakespeare, and got very interested in it. I got so I could read it, and in such a way that and that modern people could understand it, and it.
And with intonation and stuff like that, you mean, as opposed to just reading?
Because
flat.
the words mean different things now. You know, that from 1590 and 1600. You know, it's a huge difference in the way the language has evolved.
Of course.
So that now it's almost like speaking Greek or Latin. You know, they're based in English is based on Latin, the Romance language, but we don't understand Latin.
Right. It's come a long way from that.
Yeah, and we're almost to the point now where Shakespearean English is almost as incomprehensible to the modern ear as Latin would be, or Greek. So I go back. I like to go back to the root of words, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you can usually go back to the root, and you've got it's either Greek or Latin in the English language, and so it's kind of fascinating. But anyway, I went through that period, and I thought, well, this is the beginning of real drama. This is really the beginning of it, and you know, Shakespeare and Moliere and Lope de Vega, all those playwrights were the precursors of Tennessee Williams and Arthur Miller. So it's all one deal.
Yeah. Everybody studies the previous
Yeah,
greats.
but what you need to do is have somebody translate it for you. You know, and I was kind of good at that.
Naturally so.
Yeah.
And you had an interest, which,
Yeah,
what
and
a great combination.
I had an interest in it, and by the time I was out of high school, I think I'd read all of Shakespeare's plays. And some of them you don't want to read twice, you know. Cymbeline, some of those. But anyway, I had that fascination.
And then so this was post Marines too, and you took that fascination, and how did you have the gumption to go seek out something that you could do and try to hustle a living out of it?
Well, I think I had no choice. I think there are people, there are actors who are born into the situation. You know, people like Noah Beery Jr. or the Fondas, you know, Henry Fonda's kids. Those they were born into it. That's what they went into the family business.
Right.
And then there are people like Ben Jonson who fell into it because he was delivering a load of horses to Howard Hughes in Arizona or Utah or somewhere. And, you know, he delivered the horses and they paid him $300 for it. And he was making $1 a day back at the ranch. And so he decided he'd stay there. And then there's ones that are kind of just, it appears out of nowhere. Apparently, I was a performer when I was a child. You know, I remember some of it, but I don't remember a lot.
Putting on little shows and stuff for your parents.
Oh,
and stuff
yeah.
like that?
Yeah. Well, always. And I think there are people like that. You know, theater started out as religion, as a religious ceremony in ancient Greece. They had priests were originally actors,
Interesting. I didn't know that.
and they were elevated. They were noble, you know. Actually, they were con men.
Well, they're actors, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
And so then in the Middle Ages, the actors became disgraceful people. They weren't allowed to come in town. They had to do their shows outside the city limits because they couldn't stay. Boarding houses wouldn't put them up, you know, because they didn't pay their rent. They'd come.
The birth of the starving artist.
Yeah, and then they'd have pickpockets out in the crowd, you know, stealing people's money. So it was not a very good thing to want to do.
Right.
My mother, I said, well, I'm going to be an actor. And my mother said, well, nobody in our family's ever done that. Like, nobody in our family's ever stolen horses for a living, which is not true, but.
No. Really?
No, it was, but it was not a respectable thing for a long time.
Right. You know, and I'm sure she wants you to do something that's going to make you a healthy living and stuff too.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Back then,
my dad said, well, that's a pretty good hobby for somebody, but you got to have something to make a living doing.
Right.
You can't make a living doing that.
So what did that do? Did it make you more determined, or you just couldn't shake it?
My professor in college, I asked him later on why he tried to discourage me all the time from trying to do it professionally. He said, because if I could discourage you, then you needed to be discouraged. He said, you were gonna be facing odds that you had no idea how steep they were against
Success.
making a successful living doing this. Said, so if I could discourage you, then that was what I had to do.
That's appreciable. I had that same thing happen went to music college, and they did the same thing, and ended up just coming out
and
like,
it's,
look,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense because I would say very small percentage of people make a living as an actor or a musician. You know, you've got to have, everything's got to fall in place. You've got to have the ability to deliver once you get the opportunity. If you don't ever get the opportunity, then it doesn't happen.
Well, and part of the irony there is also there's more work than is appreciated in putting in time to become a really good actor, a really good musician, a really good whatever. And that's why I hem-hawed when you mentioned that you didn't like to work, because there's something to be said about the process where you go into a gig and you take a gig and you act and you do the whatever the tour is, and then you get off, and then you literally are unemployed, and then you get on the phone and you start trying to figure out what gigs are available and hustle that out of somebody else.
Yeah.
So what was your process in terms of just flying by the seat of your pants, especially in the beginning when people don't understand how hard
all
it is?
That was what it was. I would appear, I would come and Well, first I went to Chicago, and I went around to these small theaters in Chicago. And occasionally I'd get a part in one, and I'd move up and got to be known in the community a little bit. And then I auditioned for an outdoor drama down in North Carolina. Got a job there, being the narrator of this epic outdoor thing about Daniel Boone leading people west, I played the judge who financed the thing. So I was the narrator of the story. Because I had a loud voice, I could project a long way.
Did they leverage your accent too for that? Or did you have to change your accent?
I was an Englishman in that one.
Excellent. I love it.
And so I was, I played, when I was in New York, I had a pretty good career, in regional theater and dinner theater and various, a little bit of Broadway, a little bit off Broadway, but mainly outside New York. And I think there were 3 times that I played a Southerner in a play,
That's admirable. And then I think people, again, don't appreciate that. That shows that there was a lot of work put into this. You don't just show up somewhere.
Well, there was a lot of
that.
work, but also it was a lot of fun too. I mean, yeah. I said, well, I never got past the cowboy and Indian stage because I've been playing cowboys and Indians all my life, and I just never grew up.
Yeah.
My mother named me after the author of Peter Pan, James M. Barrie. And I guess because she kind of intuitively thought, well, he's never going to grow up.
Yes, very, very insightful. And so you're already, again, a lesser appreciated thing is all that hustle is minimum wage at best type pay, and then you're going from gig to gig.
Oh, yeah.
You're playing for people that aren't even paying attention half the time. It's the
same
thing musicians do.
I didn't care. I'd pay. I'd do it for free.
Yeah, and you're also older now and not having to start over. So I think the energy it takes when you think back, is it more nostalgic, or would you be able to go back and start hustling, living out of your car again?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to a certain age. I've known people, I've known actors who had a fairly successful career as a juvenile actor,
Right.
and then they progressed to leading man, and they never were hugely successful. They were just, there was a man that used to hang around the equity offices in New York. And he was fascinating to me because he wore threadbare suits, but they were expensive suits that he'd gotten when he was young. And he was probably in his 70s when I knew him. He had a little trim mustache that he'd put black mustache wax in it.
Mm-hmm.
Had his hair dyed black. And he had his fly, the zipper had gone wrong with his fly, and he had a safety pin in his fly. And his collars were threadbare, but he always had a tie and always dressed nice. as nice as he could,
Yeah.
And he was listed in the player's guide as a leading man. And he had a picture of himself at about 35. And, of course, you wouldn't recognize him even.
Right. A little bit presumptuous, but yeah, always have a surprise when he shows up.
But he was always there in the morning. He'd come in and read the casting notices, all that, and he was always there, and he was always ready to go. But never. I don't know how he. I suppose he was on. I don't know what. I mean, no, I don't.
To make a living.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see that people, and people fall off, and it's not just perseverance. Sometimes just people don't have it. And you talked a lot about that. Do you still feel like you have to have kind of an innate ability, in addition to training, or do you think somebody dumb could get trained
I think it wouldn't be worth the effort if you didn't have some kind of
natural ability.
Some kind of ability. You've got to have an ego that tells you that nobody else can do what you can do. And that's pretty much true of anybody. But if you have a vision of what you can do as opposed to what that guy can do, I think otherwise you don't have the will unless you're crazy.
Right.
Now there's some people who are crazy who do this too.
Quite successful too.
And I don't know how they have the confidence to do it.
So, I mean, there's kind of a contradiction in what you said about ego also, because you have to have the ego to visualize your success and stay focused on that as you go forward. Yet you have to be the type of person that gets kicked in the balls 10 times for every gig that they land. How do you navigate that? What was your process for going into a room, giving it everything you got, and then losing over and over?
Well, eventually you realize that your vision has to match the other guy's vision, or vice versa.
Right.
You've got to convince him that you're the person. I like to say that you've got to have you've got to preserve the infant heart, the innocent infant heart. But you've got to build the hide of a rhinoceros around it.
So don't let your heart bleed when those things happen. You just have to, but that's easier said than done. Seems kind of like especially for a dude, I think guys can compartmentalize a lot easier than women can, but there's just as many women going through that same process. I mean, it seems
women
difficult.
More than men, because women so often, when they're young, I mean, in your 20s, you reach 30, and the appeal changes.
Yeah.
And, a woman who's a beautiful teenager or young 20s, and a man too, really, you're in the disadvantage if you have a break when you're young, because An example would be Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper was probably one of the most just classically beautiful men
Mhm.
when he was a young man. But he never could break into the older part, and he looked peculiar when he was playing with Audrey Hepburn or somebody,
Mhm. And it was all vanity.
And he knew that. He was asked by he was testified before the HUAC committee, and they said, "Have you ever had plastic surgery work done?" Trying to make him nervous. He said, "Well, a plumber takes care of his tools." And that's what it was for him, because he was trying to live the young leading man up into his 60s, and thank God, I mean, if he'd lived into his 70s or 80s, he'd have been,
or had to pivot. I mean, at some point,
yeah.
right, it becomes something else.
Well, John Wayne, his career, if you look at him at the beginning of his career, about every 10 years, he'd change. And it was not obvious unless you really looked for it, but he changed. And by the time he was in his 50s, he was making sure he was co-starring with somebody like Fabian or, some of those teenage guys.
Some of the young, handsome cats, or whatever.
Or Ricky Nelson or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'd he'd be bringing in the young people there, and he'd be bringing in his old fans, so that he could, that he was always current.
Smart marketing on his part, because we're all getting old anyway. I mean, it's part of it is it more difficult to embrace getting old when you're in an industry that perhaps could shut you out, especially if you're typecast in a certain type of role? You've got to.
Well, I was playing when I was 30. An example: when I was 30, I was playing Gloria DeHaven's uncle in George Washington Slept Here. Gloria DeHaven was at that time, she was 60, and I was 30, and I was supposed to be 30 years older than she was. And I succeeded in doing that. I mean, I could play older.
And this was on a stage, right?
On stage, yeah. And then I got to be about 40, and I started doing movies, and so I was getting to the age now that I played on stage when I was very young.
So you think that's part of that other transition? Because that also seems a little less. I mean, obviously it's the same industry technically, but it seems like a different approach. And I'm a dumbass. We're talking about it from a novice's point of view here. I'm just saying.
Well,
stage classical acting versus.
It's a different thing. It's when I went to California, I was almost 40. Went there in 78.
Did you go to California to pursue screen acting? Okay.
Yeah, because I was sick in New York. They were had blackouts and garbage strikes and all kinds of stuff. I just tired of it.
Okay.
So I moved to California, and it took me about 2 years to really get started there, because they were looking for young guys,
Yep.
They weren't looking for a guy that's 40.
How'd you sustain yourself during that time? I mean, this is
I'd
part
go
of that
back
hustle.
and did a couple of off-Broadway shows back in New York, and I did some regional theater.
Okay.
I mean, I had jobs I could do. And I also wrote a bunch of radio plays,
Fascinating.
and I wrote 4 or 5 stage plays, and I'd write some, and and eventually got be known around town as a writer, really more than an actor.
Which is also tough to break in, though.
Yeah,
So that's a heck of a talent.
I had an in with the National Public Radio. They were doing a thing called popcorn theater where they'd do a 4 15-minute plays a week or a month. So I'd write one of those plays, and I'd always write a part for me, and maybe I'd write a part for my wife, because they'd pay me $100 for the script, and they'd pay me $50 to act in it. They'd pay her $50 to act in it. And my rent at the time was $100 a month. So that's the way I paid my rent.
That's great. But I mean, and that's admirable too. I think that's understated that you have that kind of talent, because you don't just decide to write plays either and it work out for everyone.
I did.
So I know, but that's a tip to your talent. I think that's a great talent to be able to write as well.
Well, I think it's part of the package, because a lot of times I don't stick too close to the script.
So I hear.
Yeah.
So do you get a lot of pushback in those instances, or have you, by now you've had enough success where I'm sure people will let you riff a little bit, but did you get any, especially just breaking in? You said you went for 2 years, and I guess that's when you got the Urban Cowboy gig or whatever.
Yeah.
And were you just following straight script at that point, or were you kind of trying to push your limits and
well, Urban
improvise
Cowboy, I mostly that was just I used that as a plan. I used that script as a plan, as an architect's drawing, and then I constructed Uncle Bob around that.
Okay, so were you able to change some of the verbiage?
Yeah, the director, Jim Bridges, said, I know you're a writer, and we need to punch this up a little bit. Can you do that for me?
Oh.
And I'd sit down and rewrite a scene, rewrite my part of the scene, which meant rewriting the scene.
Right. to your liking, but still in character.
And I'd write it on a napkin, hand it to him, say, how's this? He'd say, perfect. He said, don't tell John you're going to do that.
Does it make it more real if he's hearing something else coming out of your mouth that he's not prepared for? Does that make it more authentic?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Makes it a little more conversational because you're not just reciting lines.
Yeah. And sometimes you'd see him, he'd go, and then answer me with his words,
Yeah. And so, jumping ahead in time, only because we're on this topic, I'd love to touch on that because I find it fascinating too. One is, which is your preference in terms of taking let's say the script was amazing, and you took a great script, or be able to improvise to the level that maybe Sheridan just I hear he just kind of threw you into a situation, said, here's the kind of situation, just kind of riff on this and do your thing. Do you have a preference on that?
I don't really have a preference. If they want me to do that, I like to know ahead of time.
Okay.
I mean, I don't necessarily have to know, but I mean, it gives me a chance to kind of.
Right. Did you have a chance in that instance to prepare for that, or was
And
it
that
just...
one, yeah, because I never got a script for the part that I'm talking to Buster Welch.
Right.
Because he told me, Taylor, the other scene that I did with Jimmy was all scripted. I mean, that was just
Okay.
script. But with Buster, he said, I want you to just sit and talk to him. I'm going to roll camera. I'm not going to say action. I'm not going to say cut. I'm going to roll camera till we're out of film, and then we'll reload and do some more. He said, I just want you to talk to Buster about horses. I said, okay. So we sat and talked. I'd known Buster for years, so we were comfortable together. And that's really what he wanted, somebody that Buster would be comfortable with.
Yeah. It was almost like two friends chatting about something they were familiar with.
Yeah.
Is that something you prefer? And was that less of a put on the spot moment because of the circumstances?
No, I don't think so. They actually only used about 3 lines of the thing, I mean, we went for an hour, I guess, but they only picked 3 lines.
Interesting. So what do you prefer then, or is it just a mesh, which is what you do? Is that what you prefer versus taking a magnificent script or improvising with a warning? What would you pick?
I would, I'd mix,
Yeah.
a mix. If you don't have a good script to start with, you're not going to have anything. I mean, you can't just have a bunch of people out there improvising because nobody knows what anybody else is doing.
Unless you're doing Spinal Tap, that's about where you're at.
Yeah,
right?
and you can't put it together. I mean, it's Spinal Tap you can put together.
Right, because the same folks are improvising.
Because you have the idea of what the progress is in the story,
Right.
But to do a movie that way, I mean, a conventional movie, you'd have 35 points of view, and none of them would have there wouldn't be a focus,
cohesiveness.
It'd be a mess.
So when you pick a script to go with, and I assume people pitch you scripts as well as you through your agent would try to get with certain projects. But what do you find in scripts? What is your process, and what do you like to look for when you read a script?
I like a story that pretty clear. That's clearly there's a protagonist, there's an antagonist, there's there are certain.
There's your will he make it at about 75%, right?
Yeah.
There, right?
Yeah. And then to me, a script is the first drawing of a building, an architect's rendering of the building.
Without the specs, just the sketch of the, right. Okay.
And you read the script as at first you read it for the story. I don't read it with any particular part in mind or anything. I read it for the story. Then I read to see where the part that they're talking about me for, where he fits into the story. Now, if the story cannot be told without this person, then you're probably going to end up on the cutting room floor, which I don't mind either, because I got paid for it.
Right. But you'd rather at least have a fruit for all that effort.
Yeah. Now, there was one movie that I did called The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia. I had, I think I had fourth billing in that movie. I mean, in my contract. And if I was in the movie at all, they had to give me fourth billing. And I was in the first 15 minutes of the movie, and then the movie moved to another place, and I wasn't in the rest of the movie. And the director called me and said, he called me the day they were going to open it in California.
Wait till the last minute.
Said I had to lose 15 minutes. And so you've got one line in the movie. I saved one line. So I got paid the amount I was supposed to be paid. I had one line, but I'm still fourth billed. My line was, I take a cigar out of my mouth. The camera's panning along a group of people, and I take a cigar out of my mouth, and I said, bullshit. Put it back in, and that's it.
It's almost ironic.
Yeah. I don't think that was even in the script. I think it's something that I ad-lib.
Yeah. But you didn't concede the fourth billing. You said, hey, one line, whatever it is.
I mean, it was in the contract.
Yeah.
So I'm fourth bill, one line, just barely in it.
Yeah, you're hoping people weren't following that movie for your sake. It's like, they'll walk away disappointed when they...
Yeah, well, I got mail for it, too. For
Did you?
Yeah. Got some mail for it. People said, what happened?
Yeah.
I said, they had to lose 15 minutes.
Oh, my God.
But I still got residuals, too.
And that was a early 80s movie?
Yeah.
Is that right? I remember that movie. I remember the theme song in particular from that movie.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid was in it. Dennis Quaid and Christian McNichol.
Oh, my gosh. Interestingly, the way the industry's moving now, I mean, you've watched this industry grow for damn near 60 years. And it's taken a lot of different turns as they go through different generations of digital and all that kind of stuff. But this AI is taking kind of a new part of the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people feel threatened by it. I see the same in the music industry. It's kind of already happened in the music industry. They don't even have a chance to protest and get all their organizations out in front of it. So with it kind of being here, and at the very least, you're facing it, whether you like it or not, whether it's going to be staved off for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that in general? Just whether it be AGI or AI use for writing or anything.
I'm glad I'm not starting my career now. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't think it's. I think it's possible, but I don't think it's likely that they'll make a movie starring Humphrey Bogart against James Dean. The two of them, and that kind of deal. I don't think that's likely, but it's possible.
They have to get those estates to sign off, and then, right?
Yeah. Or they could pirate them out of Philippines or China or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know where it's going to lead, but it's going to turn a lot of things upside down. And already right now, the pay structure is gone to hell, gone completely.
Because of this?
No, not only this, but it also has to do with the markets, television particularly markets, and movies. I don't know how the movie theaters are going to survive because people don't go anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you got these huge television screens the size of that wall at home, and people are used to this phone deal. They get, they don't want to talk on the phone. They want to text, or they want to do, I don't know what, but our way of communication, we don't have face-to-face communication
in the business
as much anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, now you don't audition for something; you put it on the camera, and it's not the same.
Right. Well, I mean, you remove all of the jitters and how can you perform with 15 people here staring at you and the cameras and the lights? It changes that entire dynamic, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
You can show up to a set and suck in front of people. I mean, you see that with artists all the time. You see that with me all the time. I learn an instrument. I feel like, hey, I'm doing great in here, but don't put me in front of people.
Yeah.
I'll forget how to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that becoming an issue? And is that going to maybe even further the AI, pro AI people?
Oh, I think it will. I think there's certain jobs that will be robotic. A cameraman, the camera operator.
Mm-hmm.
That'll just be, you
automated.
Look at the screen and you punch a button and it goes to that camera, goes to that camera.
Mm.
And so you don't have the creativity, the creative input of a human mind. You've got some kind of robotic something in there, and so you don't have the heart of the project.
Do you think the layman, so to speak, the layman audience will have enough of an appreciation for that to actually be able to discern or care?
I don't think most of them will, because most of them will sit through TV commercials.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I look at a show, if it's got TV commercials in it, I forget what the show was about. I think about that commercial.
Yeah.
But, I don't think, I think there's a lot of things that are not so good about it. I think it'll save money. I was going to talk about the pay structure. The reason for the pay structure is because back in the late 20th century, there were basically 3 networks.
Right.
Now, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of them there are. So now you've got specialized network, golf, you've got tennis, you've got this, you've got that, you've got Western, you got Hallmark soppy movies, you got this, that, and the other thing. And so you don't have to have the audience that you used to have to be able to break even. But you also don't have the income, the advertising income.
Because it's
that they
diluted.
used to have because it's all diluted. So if you the $1 million contracts for a cast on like the Friends and stuff like that, that's done.
Hmm.
Uh,
Is that down the line
huge
too?
miniseries are done. They don't have the money to make one.
Is it cost prohibitive to do movies also? Is that kind of why? Because I mean, I happen to be the type of person who adores going to the movie theater to watch a movie.
Yeah.
But I've got the AMC experience membership.
Yeah, but you also notice when you go in there, you're in there with 3 other people.
Right. And there's, I can see 4 movies a week, but
yeah,
I can't come up with that many.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not that many good movies coming out that hit the theater. So it makes it, a chore for me, but I don't have that kind of insight there. For people that are rooting for that to come back, is it something that is going to be maybe salvaged with, I know some of the movies that are coming out are being salvaged by AI because they're still doing all the blow up superhero movies, which are so much AGI intensive, but the real dramatic movies, do you think they'll ever come back? Is there any path for them?
I don't see it. I don't think there's an audience for it. I think if you notice the way they cut things now, they cut things like MTV. They won't finish something. They'll go up, say the last word of a scene, bam, so it's done, and then jump to something else. It makes you dizzy. You sit there, it's like something's going on over here, or, I mean, it's like the way they cut things together just makes you nervous now.
Like short sequences, it's kind of how social media is set up. It's a short attention span. If we stay on this scene too long, we're going to lose people.
Yeah.
So cut to something else.
And I don't know if that's true, but I think that's what the
producers are thinking.
Yeah, the guys with the business degrees out of Harvard, they're the ones running the thing now.
And they're still somebody's still making money at the top, but eventually all that dilution's gonna happen everywhere in the scene. And do you look, if there's not people getting filthy rich, you can still make an admirable living doing that, knowing where the top is, because you're talking 1% of the 1% anyway, are the ones signing the millions and millions to make an appearance, right?
Yeah.
Has it affected you much when you have roles that are long and short? Some of your, you've been Emmy-nominated roles.
It affects me. I don't, used to be, I could make one movie in a year, and that'd do me for the year. Now I got to make 3 or 4.
Wow.
But it's, it affects anybody, if the market goes down, you've got to take a cut and pay or not work.
Right. Your survival money. Is it cutting into, I know you've taken on projects before, and I don't know if they're passion projects or not, because I don't know how much you make on each of these things, but I know you've even done some local movies and stuff, the Windsor type movies and everything, which you were great in. But is it going to cut into people's ability to do those passion projects? Sometimes you see just a really good film that isn't just going to be a mainstream thing, but it was a passion project.
I think so. I think a lot of times now people are going to, what is that, when you ask public for money,
oh yeah, the what do you call that? Holly, what is that? You go and what's the app? You ask people to donate money to your cause or whatever. What's that? Yeah, the GoFundMe stuff.
GoFundMe, yeah. Right. I mean, I don't know if you can make enough money to do something with that. I guess you can because people say they do it, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm sure tons of people try it, but I
Yeah.
mean, you can't be whimsical and have people give you money for nothing. It's got to be at least a notable project with some kind of merit to it, I would assume.
Yeah.
But even then, I mean, if you're trying to put together a project and you need somebody who's a tenured, popular actor, and you wanted you to do it, and you have the choice between doing something that you feel like would settle your heart more because you really love what they're doing, but you have to take another gig that's just okay.
Well, usually what I don't let my bank account tell me what I've got to do. I try. I think money like just paper. You and I agree what it's worth. If nobody else agrees what it's worth, then it's not worth anything.
Right.
And so I don't think of it like a lot of people, want to get more.
Right.
I want to get rid of it.
Yeah, it would be great to do passion projects and still make a living.
Yeah.
But it's, the sustenance is still necessary. Right?
Yeah.
So do you still do passion projects, so to speak? I don't even know if you have done them. Like I said, I don't want to be presumptuous, but I'm curious if you have.
Sometimes, yeah, I'll sometimes, but if it's a young filmmaker wanting to do something and they got a little part that they, like a first part, like that. What is that movie that where I play that preacher? I just come in, preached a sermon, and then it's I think that's before the credits come up. And I did that for practically nothing, but I think I did it because there's a bunch of people in there who really were excited about it and wanted to do it. And and if some excitement is kind of contagious, you get.
Yeah.
I don't get excited about stuff anymore too much unless somebody else is excited about it.
Do you, what kind of other arts do you participate in? You mentioning that you write. Do you still write plays or movies or anything like that? And do you do any kind of other art?
Not as much. Writing is kind of lonely. You.
Very lonely.
I mean, what I'd rather sit in a bar and tell a story to somebody than to write it.
Just tell them, hey, record this. We can have AI write it for us later, right? Any other art or music or anything you get into?
Well, I just did a record album, sort of. Went down to Muscle Shoals.
Really? Well, that must have been a really cool experience to go there.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I'm just telling stories.
They put music to it, or
I said it. I sit here with a microphone in the studio and just start telling the story. Tell a story for about 5 minutes, and then they say, "Okay, that's good." Or, "No, we need to get it a little shorter or a little longer." I said, "Okay, fine."
You ever think of turning that into some kind of little novella and going on the road and doing something, or do little?
Oh, I do that too.
Do you?
Yeah, I got a show that I do that I start out with a little piece of Shakespeare. So I kind of get them blindsided,
Right. They're not expecting that.
Yeah. And then I was doing it in the bar out there in the country,
They're waiting for the no country to show up.
Had these people in here, and I start, all the world's a stage, all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and each man in his time plays many parts. his acts being 7 ages. About this time, people told you we shouldn't have come here.
You
I
hear,
can
you
hear
hear
'em.
the clink and stop. It's got to be the opposite. Like, wait, what?
And I can hear him
Straight.
saying this. This is going to be some kind of Shakespeare stuff. I don't want And I finished the whole thing. Then I say, well, that's a little piece of Shakespeare. And that's the last piece of culture you're going to get out of me tonight. We're going to have some fun now.
There you go.
Then I start telling stories.
That would be fun. So you hit the road and do just little joints around just for. So do you have like an actual tour schedule you set up, or you just kind of fill your time with doing those here and there?
No, I just, I've done, let's see, as far west as I've gone is Tucson, Arizona. No, Tombstone, Arizona. Was in Tombstone. I did it in the Shiflin Hall, which was one of the first buildings built in Tombstone.
Hmm.
And far east I've gone is Tennessee.
No, Nashville.
No, I've been east of Nashville, so I've gone North Carolina and all over Texas and Kansas, up in Kansas, Oklahoma.
Well, we're going to get the recording. I'd love to listen to that. It'd make your wife nuts, but I would love it.
Apple Music.
Oh, Apple Music can get it. Was it listed just under your name?
Cowboys and Endings.
Cowboys and Endings. Love to promote
Barry
that.
Corbin.
Love to promote that.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's any good or not, but they put music to it. It's
well, and you know how that can change the tone of anything.
Yeah.
You know, you watch this, especially we watch these trailers. We were watching a movie yesterday, actually in the theater, ironically enough. And it would come on, and I would imagine if I was watching this with different music, how it could be a completely different movie just based on the little trailer.
Yeah.
Did you have any control over what kind of music they put on, or you just like, it's my story, you just use it how you like?
I said, you know about music, I know about stories, so you just put something with it.
What do you listen to music ever, or how do you spend your spare time?
Yeah, some. I don't hear well. I've got these hearing aids that, they get clogged up with wax and stuff, and I don't hear real good.
That's the story, and you're sticking to it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So what is a day in the life? Let's take a typical slow day. Obviously, if you're working on set somewhere, that's a different game. But what is a day in the life? What does it look like for you?
Well, let's see. I get up about 11, sometimes 2.
You're still a Californian.
Oh yeah. I'll sleep late. Go to bed about depends on what movies on Turner Classic Movies. I'll go to bed about 4 a.m. sometimes. 4:30.
That makes more sense. Getting up at 11 after you've been up till 4 a.m.
Yeah. And then I usually get up. I usually read a couple of newspapers a day.
So you're the one.
And I'll read some magazine. Yeah, I don't read off of some.
I can't either. And newspapers are kind of become a pain to me, but I can't. It's hard for me to read the news on that either. So I like having a tangible reading. My wife and I will print off all kinds of stuff so we can just read on a piece of paper at least.
Yeah. I don't. I don't like to read on electronic things.
What do you like to read? Do you still read pretty often?
Yeah. It's pretty eclectic. I read about anything. If it's good, if it catches my interest. if I don't, if I read something, if I start to read a script, if it doesn't get me in the first 10 pages, I'll put it aside. Try it again later, maybe, but
As will most publishers when they pitch it.
yeah.
There's a lot of, I know there's a lot of bad books out there, but I've been through that process too. And they definitely want you to like get to the point and put something exciting up front.
Yeah, get something up front. It's
same with the screenplay too,
well,
right?
you got to have something that a hook. You got to have some kind of hook,
Right.
and if you don't have that, then you're just probably not going to do anything. Probably you read something, and if you don't get something out of the first 10 pages, you're not going to get anything out of the next 75 or 80 pages.
That's possible. And it's better than wasting your time to find out. At least if you read something to know, well, this action is going to give me some promise down the road. Now I'm willing to get the backstory and spend some time, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about doing all the hustle stuff, and I know there's still some hustle in you because you're still working.
Yeah, well, there's not much. Now, most of the time, I just wait for them to call me.
Okay, so stuff's coming to you, which is great. I mean, that's a great position to be in. And maybe now, because obviously you just got through your surgery and everything else too, but you may find other ways to do it. But when you were young and now, if there's even a difference, is there something that you do specifically to decompress after coming back from doing all these auditions or being on set for days and up and doing all that kind of stuff? Do you do anything to counter any of that?
No.
Not really?
No.
You're a natural.
No, I just, I like time off and I like time at home, but I'm kind of, Jim Rogers, Will Rogers' youngest son, said that his dad, when he came home, he always liked being home. But after about 2 weeks at home, he'd start looking at a map and trying to find somewhere to go.
And that kind of life that you live is a perfect balance because you get to, you're always looking forward to the next thing that way, even going home.
Yeah.
And I've heard you say also that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so there wasn't a quote or anything, but I'm always interested too in this approach to acting, the old school approach, not necessarily on the video type. But you claim to not be an extrovert, or at least claim to spend a lot of your time alone. Is there a place for introversion in this business at all? Do you know any people that are and still succeed?
Yeah, there's a surprising number of people who are introverts. Most people in the business, and I fit into this category sort of, but most people have a public persona and a private persona. And I think I've got that. They're close. The two are close, but I'm much more likely to spend the day just quietly and, thinking than I am to spend the day out searching people to talk to.
Yeah. Well, do you find that people over the years have misinterpreted you as a person because they base you off of your characters?
Sometimes, yeah.
I mean, of course, people that don't know you, actually, that's all they have to go on. But it's also pretty presumptuous to assume that you're that dude all the time. Because, I mean, there's a reason why you got picked. You're pretending to be somebody else very well.
Yeah.
Has it ever happened? Any remarkable instances where people just
sometimes people are afraid of me. They think I'm gruff and mean. Well, I'm not really. I mean, I might be short with people sometimes, but.
Well, is there anything that doesn't get asked of you that you feel like people should ask you or that you would like to share? Something about you or your goings on or anything that typically doesn't get touched on?
No, I think most people would be kind of surprised at how uneventful my life is. I mean, it's, a normal day for me would be, I'll get up and I'll have breakfast sometimes at 11 o'clock in the morning, sometimes at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'll read a little bit, check my messages, see if anything, rather than somebody trying to give me money or somebody trying to take money from me. I always erase those right away.
Right.
And I check my messages, see if anything interesting come in, which it almost never is.
Yeah. These days it's tough.
And then I'll read some in Facebook. I like to read about things, and that's the only way I get real information. And then I read the newspaper to get the real information.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll watch Fox News for a little while to get one version of the truth, and I'll watch CNN or something to see what the other version of the truth is.
It's a lot of work to figure out what people are trying to say these days.
I don't even try to figure it out. I just sit and look at it and say, all right. Then I'll change the channel and look at the other version. Well, the other thing says we're living in China. This says we're living in India. I think we're living in America still, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. So you are, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of having you on a show like this anyways, because we just really want the human side of what goes on. There's a common thread with all of us, and with all the craziness that's out there, even somebody that's done such remarkable things is still a teddy bear at home and a human and likes his peace and everything else. I love it.
Yeah, well, that's basically who I am.
Well, I would have had to guess otherwise too. So I'm glad to know that that's who you are, because that was my impression anyway. But you could have shown up as one of your characters and scared the piss out of me. I'd have been fine with that too. I just wouldn't want to hang out too long.
Yeah. One of my neighbors, Mina, thought I was a horrible person because I played a kind of a racist, anti-Hispanic person in a movie. She's from where's she from? El Salvador. She said she lived next door to me for a year before she ever even said hello.
You took offense to your character.
No, she didn't take offense. She's just afraid of me.
No.
I think she thought I was going to burn her house down. Now she comes over and she's all talky and hugs me and stuff. So she's come all the way around now.
I love it. I wouldn't know his most famous ad-lib, and only because I don't know which ones are ad-libbed, but I know you've got some famous short scenes, the No Country scene, some of the Yellowstone, but you said that one was scripted, the longer one.
Yeah.
So I don't know unless it wasn't Old Country Guy.
It's probably the one that they say is the most famous is one from War Games. When Matthew Broderick comes into the war room and pushes that Air Force major off the computer and starts to talk to the Whopper. The guy he pushed away was a guy who was he was our technical advisor. He was actually an Air Force major.
Really?
And So he said, wait a minute, I'd never let this kid into my computer unless I had a direct order from the general. And I didn't have any lines then, so John Badham turned to me and said, can you think of a colorful way to order the kid into the computer? I said, yeah, I believe I can. He said, well, you going to tell me what it is? I said, no, let's just roll it. So he said, okay, action. I said, God damn it, I'd piss on a spark plug if I thought it'd do any good. Let that boy in there, Major. And everybody laughed, He said, okay, now everybody be quiet because we're going to use this. I thought I was just making a joke, I didn't think I was going to use it. So I said it again. He said, okay, print.
Done.
And I figured I'd probably come in, loop something instead of that, but no, they kept it in. And somebody asked me how I came up with it. I said, well, I had a cousin named Ronnie who I didn't like. And he used to throw clods at me. He'd try to get one with a rock in it so it'd
Mud claws, yeah.
draw some blood, So I'd beat him up. He'd run home and tell Mama that I'd beat him up and she'd give me a whipping. So I thought I'd get even with him. One day we're out on the tractor with Granddad, and he got off to do something off the tractor, and he left it running in neutral. And I told Ronnie, I said, I got a dime in my pocket here. I'll give it to you if you'll pee on that thing right there. I didn't know what he's going to do, what was going to happen, but I knew it'd be exciting. So he peed on that spark plug, knocked him off about 2 rows over, and he cried, ran back, but I knew he wasn't going to tell Mama anything because he wasn't going to tell her he peed on the spark plug.
It's too humiliating.
So I thought maybe it gelded him and he wouldn't ever have any children, which had been a good thing for the world, but he had 2 or 3 children after that anyway.
Well, I've got a little something for you, if it's okay for me to be so presumptuous. I don't know if Hannah had asked you guys or not, but I have one if you ever get bored enough to read an old school book, that's my book. It's a quick read, and it's you may or may not be interested. If you love it, let me know. If you hate it, just keep your mouth shut.
I look forward to reading it.
That's from a past life and just my human experience there. But this is really the reward for coming to the house here and recording with us. And typically, we have so many guests that are from out of state.
Yeah.
And this is kind of repping Texas here, but this, I don't know if you've tried this new Blackland, but they make this in Fort Worth. It's all Texas grasses completely. It's not a blend or anything. It's magnificent. So sip responsibly and think of me, but I think you'll love it.
I will. Oh, thank you.
And don't tell your doctor I gave that to you.
Yeah. Well, I'll do it responsibly. I'm pretty much I'm not officially on the wagon, but I'll have an occasional beer and I'll have an occasional shot.
Mhm.
Well, that what they call a John Wayne shot, which is a little more than a shot, but I'll have an occasional shot of that.
Yeah, if you can drink that nice and slow too. It's really smooth. You'll be impressed, I think. And it's it's repping Texas, so from Texan to Texan, we're good. Lastly, if you would indulge me, you have maybe any kind of Shakespearean example to leave us with? Anything you can give us I don't expect you to have everything memorized, but.
Well, I can give you that 7 Ages of Man. I can do that.
Well, I'm not going to be picky. I'm just impressed anyway. People will be really impressed to hear it.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and each man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in his nurse's arms. Then the schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face creeping like snail unwillingly to school. Then the lover, sighing like a furnace with a woeful ballad writ to his mistress' eyebrow. Then the soldier, full of strange oaths, bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden, quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And the justice in fair round belly with good cape on line, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise souls and modern instances. So he plays his part. Next stage shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, spectacles on nose, pouch on side. His youthful hose, well saved, a world too wide for his slunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in its sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange, eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion. Son's teeth, son's taste, son's eyes, son's everything.
Friggin' amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Honored to have you. Thank you for sharing your time and for you married up too. So I see. So that's another skill you have. We'll have to talk about that off camera. I'm very grateful to have you. Thank you, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
What's it take? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Success around the sandbox with second grade rules. A confident fake to make you do what they want when they won't pay the fool. A diplomatic face is the one to see you through. Don't let those bigots take you off your game, or just to let them loose. Just sit here in the front